Chapter 1. Arkansas, late summer of 1880. "14-year-old Brody came in from the evening chores. The dusty field had turned his tanned skin to a chalky gray. He brushed his arms off and slapped the dirt from his pants.
"Not in the house."
Mama warned.
"Yes, ma'am,"
he said. Mama fretted around the kitchen, passing back and forth in front of the glowing cracks in the potbelly stove. Brody breathed deeply through his nose, expecting the scent of supper cooking, but found no such smell.
"Time to eat?"
he asked. Mama untied her brown apron and laid it on the counter next to her, but said nothing. He went to the table, sat down, and waited. Papa's boots thumped on the wooden porch. The sound stopped, only to be replaced with a rhythmic rapping on the side of the house. Papa always removed his boots, banged them against the wall to knock the dust off, and then left them outside until the next morning. This time the banging carried on longer than normal.
"Why won't he stop?"
Brody asked. Mama sighed. "Got things on his mind," she whispered, still facing the washpan. The wooden lever on the door rattled, and Papa came in. Mama turned. Black and silver strands of hair had come loose from her bun and rested against her cheek. She normally kept her hair tucked and tidy, but not today. Brody studied her face closer. She had dark circles under her eyes and tiny wrinkles coming from the corners. Something he'd never noticed before. "Anything?" she asked Papa. "Nothing." Papa rubbed a calloused hand across the stubble on his chin. He sat at the table and looked at Brody. "Boy?" "Yes, sir," he answered. "Your pony needs brushed." Papa took his dusty hat off, swept his brown hair back, and then repositioned the hat.
"But I already brushed Tater."
"Son." Papa's tone warned him not to argue. Brody headed out the door.
"Yes, sir. Have it done in a jiffy."
He knew why he had been sent out. Grown-ups like to talk alone. After closing the door behind him, Brody ducked around the corner. The thin chinking between the logs on the old house did little to muffle the conversation. Papa coughed.
"Hasn't rained in weeks. The last of the crops died."
"All of them?" Mama asked. "All dead?"
"All brown."
"Jim, what are we going to do?" she asked. Dishes clinked together. "The pantry is bare, and we have nothing to can for the winter." Papa sighed.
"The last of the money went to the new seed."
"And now all the plants are dead," she said. "If you don't get some meat, we will have to move."
"Hunted all morning,"
Papa said.
"The game is scarce. They're feeling the pinch, too."
"This is not a pinch," Mama argued. "We are in trouble." Brody pressed against the rough logs and heard his papa's chair scoot across the wood floor.
"I can go to Fort Smith. Maybe there's work."
"If there was work, we'd know about it." Her voice rose. "And how would you get there? On Brody's little pony?" The room remained silent for a moment. "It's hot," Mama said. "Put that fire out. We have no meat to cook anyhow."
"I can walk to Fort Smith,"
Papa said. "It would take you days." She paused. "You could have sold the old mule if you hadn't killed it."
"He went lame and we had to eat,"
he said.
"We ate him?"
Brody clutched his gut. His father had told him the mule ran off. He took a step back, lowered his head, and stuck his hands in his pockets. The thought of eating the mule meat twisted his stomach around. The conversation inside continued to be heated, and Mama said,
Jim, we can't wait. Winter is coming and we have nothing. We have to move, and we should all go now. We have put a lot of work in this place,
he said.
You and I haven't eaten a handful in days. I don't know about you, but I don't see us staying here much longer.
Brody leaned closer to the wall.
Not eaten?
Guilt seized him as he thought about the past few days. Mama had cooked for him, but now he realized he had not seen her or his father eating at all.
Brody will be back soon,
Papa said.
Let's sleep on it. Pray about it. We'll find a solution in the morning. Jim, we've been looking for a solution for 3 years, and it has pretty much near killed us. It's the best I can do.
Brody heard the booming sound of his father's hand slapping the table. A silent moment passed, and then Papa spoke quietly.
Tomorrow. We can pack a few things tomorrow evening and then head out the next morning.
Brody ran to the barn and brushed Tater using quick, short strokes. He pondered on things, wondering if it was all his fault. Had he eaten more food than he should have? He patted Tater on the side. The pony's ribs stood out under his fingers. He rubbed the animal between the ears.
You're safe. There's barely any meat on you.
After putting the brush up, Brody closed the barn door behind him. The red sunset cast the last of its glow across the rolling hills in front of their farm, giving the dusty brown grass a tinge of scarlet. This was his home. He did not want to move. He paused and looked toward the dark woods behind his house. There had to be some kind of game animals left in there. He went back to the cabin. An oil lamp sat on the table. He took it and walked across the creaky floor. Brody stopped at his parents' bedroom and could hear Mama crying softly.
You okay?
He whispered.
Come here,
Papa said from the dark bedroom. Brody went inside. In the dim light from his lantern, he could see them standing in front of the window. Papa held Mama with his strong arms. Papa shifted and held out a welcoming arm. Brody went over and Papa pulled him close. Mama took the lamp and set it on the nightstand. They shared a family hug, longer and tighter than normal.
Is everything all right?
Brody asked.
Everything has a way of working out,
Papa said.
Go get some rest.
Brody wanted to tell them he had overheard the conversation, but thought Papa might be mad on account of the eavesdropping. He kissed Mama on the cheek and then headed to his room.
Say your prayers,
Mama said. Brody rolled and tossed, and though he tried, he could not sleep. His stomach growled with hunger. If he felt this bad after going only an evening without food, then he could not imagine how hungry his folks must be. They needed food, and he felt responsible. There just had to be game left in the woods.
My spot. He didn't try my spot.
Brody had found a wonderful area a year earlier, but kept it a secret. He was not supposed to be that far from home. He had seen 3 deer in the secret hollow the year before, but could not get a shot at any of them. This time would be different. It was close to Indian territory, and he knew he would get in trouble, but it would be worth it. If he could bring home a big deer, perhaps his folks would decide not to move. Brody drifted to sleep. thinking of how excited his folks would be when he returned with some game. He woke early, lit a lantern, and got dressed. Instead of doing his morning chores, Brody rushed to the corner where they kept the guns. He was surprised to see his father's gun was missing. Papa must have gotten up earlier than him and taken the rifle. It only left Brody with the old flintlock his grandfather had given them before he died. Brody had used it before. The pitted barrel made the gun hard to load, but it still shot straight. He gathered the wadding, balls, bag of powder, then grabbed a leather pouch hanging on the wall and threw it all inside. Brody found his big hunting knife and went to the front door. It creaked as it swung open, so he paused and listened, making sure Papa was long gone. Brody eased the door shut behind him and then headed to the barn. A grumpy tater tried turning his head to keep Brody from putting the bridle on, but it didn't work. After finishing with the pony, Brody took a leather bag hanging from a post. He tied his pouch to it with a short piece of rope and then threw them across Tater's shoulders. He rolled the wick down on the lantern, hung it on the wall, and then pulled himself up on the pony's back. Though Brody weighed no more than a couple bushels of corn, the pony still grunted. Brody leaned down to pat Tater's neck.
Let's get going. The sun is rising, and we got a long way to go.
He kicked his pony's sides, and they were on their way. The morning air instantly stung Brody's eyes and sent water streaking out of the corners, but he did not care. His special hunting spot would provide. He just knew it. He kept the reluctant pony at a trot and admired the top edge of the sun as it crept up to slowly kill the night's shadows. The first hour of daylight could sometimes be the best time to hunt, and he was determined not to miss it. Brody made his way up a long ridge. After going down a slope, they went through a grove of cedars. The prickly green limbs rubbed against his clothes and coated him with an aroma of fresh resin. He welcomed the strong smell, knowing it would hide his own scent from the deer. After leaving the evergreens, they crossed over two smaller ridges, and then arrived at the old wagon trail that led to his secret spot. The track had not been traveled by wagon for many years, allowing large saplings and brush to grow in its middle. Tater settled into the path's depression where countless wild animals had traveled. The pony trotted along, and Brody pondered if his hunting spot was in Arkansas or in the edge of Indian territory. The oaks towered above them. Old leaves from last winter crunched under Tater's hooves. Brody slowed him to a walk to keep from spooking any game. A large low-hanging branch blocked the way. It looked like a good place to stop, so Brody climbed down and tied Tater to the limb. He patted the speckled gray hair on the pony's shoulder, retrieved the gun and packs, and then eased down the wooded side of the point. About halfway down the gentle slope, Brody found an old oak tree with a large root that curled around. It formed a perfect sitting spot. He raked some of the leaf litter out of the way and settled in. He opened the pack and took a quick inventory in the growing light. There were about 20 balls, lots of wadding, and a bag of black powder. He knew Papa kept the flintlock loaded. He just had to prime the pan. Brody reached into the bag for the powder flask, but it wasn't there. He huffed in frustration at having forgotten it. The task of filling the pan would be hard without it, but he could do it. He untied the bag of powder and then balanced the gun across his knees. Brody managed to load the pan without spilling very much. He pulled the strike plate down carefully, trying not to make any noise. He sat the powder between his legs and cocked the hammer all the way back. The time for waiting had come. The world slowly woke. Birds flew from tree to tree and chirped. A squirrel jumped onto a branch above him, sending down a shower of morning dew. Brody ignored the drops and entertained the idea of taking a shot at the tree rat, but then figured his chances of hitting it were slim. If the varmint ventured to the ground, Brody knew he would try to bag it. Memories, good memories, drifted through his mind. He missed these days, back when his family first moved to the farm, back when they would laugh. Things were so different then. Grandpa was still alive. There was great promise in the crops, and Papa was happy. After each year's crops faded to produce as expected, Mama's feelings about the farm changed. When Grandpa died, she told Papa they should move, but he would have none of it. He said the Martins weren't quitters. Brody missed his grandfather and the long talks. He had always been bothered by his small size, and Grandpa knew it. The old man promised he would grow big and strong. Brody hoped he was right. Jumbles of those past conversations kept his thoughts busy, until a twig snapped in the hollow below. Brody sat a little straighter and got ready. The echo of old leaves crunching sent his heart racing. The secret spot had not failed him. Deep in the hollow, a shadow moved. The figure came around a large tree and stepped into the sun's morning rays. A deer. Life had been hard on the skinny animal. Its ribs pushed against its hide, forming a skin-covered washboard along its sides. The deer stood motionless for a long time, except for its ears, which twitched constantly. The speed of his thoughts raced with the pace of his heart. The excitement of the hunt and promise of food overtook him. There would be enough meat to feed his family for a week, maybe more. Brody pulled his feet closer to his body, raising his knees and giving him a good rest for the shot. He waited until the deer lowered its head. Brody rested his elbows on his knees and brought the butt of the gun to his shoulder. His hand shook with an excitement his grandpa had called deer fever. The animal began to feed, nibbling at weedy sprigs and coming closer with each step. The dry leaf litter announced the deer's every move. It stopped 50 steps away, threw its head up, and looked around. Brody froze. Any movement would give his hiding spot away. He strained to keep from blinking. The deer stomped its foot, a sure sign it had caught his scent. Brody knew he would have to take the shot now. He peered down the long barrel, lined the sight up, and pulled the trigger. The gun kicked hard, and smoke bellowed into the air. He thought he heard the deer running, but could not see it through the white cloud of gun smoke. He laid the flintlock across his knees, turning it on its side. Brody looked down and saw a glowing ember on the edge of the bag he had neglected to close. He reached to swat it away. In that instant, a tiny ember sparked a few grains of powder and spread down into the bag. Before he could move away, a searing orange flash of exploding black powder shot up. The blast hit him square in the face, and Brody sucked in a surprised breath. His eyes, mouth, throat, and whole head burned. He slapped at his face and rolled on the ground. His voice cracked with each attempted scream. The remnants of burning powder covered the inside of his mouth and throat. His face stung all over, but his eyelids and forehead worst of all. The smell of burnt hair filled the air. He tumbled, flopped, and prayed the whole time for it to cease. Brody stopped flailing long enough to realize there were no flames. Only pain. Intense pain. He opened his mouth, knew he was screaming, but his scorched vocal cords produced no sounds. His cries were silent. Salty tears burned his cheeks. A tingling feeling ran up his legs, and then he passed out. Sometime later, he woke. The pain had lessened to a razor-sharp throb that kept time with his heartbeat. Brody guessed he had been out for a while. The hot, stiff breeze told him the stillness of the morning had passed. He sat up and tried to open his eyes, but his eyelids were swollen shut. He managed to crack one of his lids slightly, but could only see the smallest hint of light.
I'm blind.